A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Today, the topic of our discussion in this political science course for BS Anthropology second semester is democracy. And basically the lecture is divided into two parts, part A and part B, and we will inshallah discuss both parts today, and this will help us to conclude the current semester's course. Okay, so democracy, meaning and definition. In dictionary definition, democracy is basically a government by the people in which supreme power is vested in the people and exercised directly by them or by their elected agents under a free electoral system. So in the words of Abraham Lincoln, democracy is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Okay, so there is no clear-cut universal definition of democracy. Most of the definitions of democracy focus on basically the qualities, procedures, and the institutions. And there are many types of democracy, and their varied practices produce similarly varied effects. Democracy basically as a concept, it comes from the Greek words demos, which means people, and kratos means authority or power. So it means that government which is conducted with the freely given consent of people, or democracy is a system of government in which supreme authority lies with the people. Thirdly, it is a rule by the people in a country directly or by representation. And number four, the form of government in which political control exercised by all the people either directly or through their elected representatives. Okay, so the word democracy itself means rule by the people, which means that a democracy is a system where people can change their rulers in a peaceful manner, and the government is given the right to rule because the people say it may. So the democratic government is a government in which the people and the government are connected in terms of both the input and output dimensions of the government, which means that people are self-governing in terms of input. And what is input? Input is basically people having freedom to put their ideas into government and to shape the government through elections, contacting the officials, lobbying, and so on. It also means that people are free to prefer their way of governance. Similarly, the output. Output is basically the laws and policies. Laws and policies of the government indicates that government is in the hands of a self-governing people. So democracy presupposes that people are free to participate in the governing process, participatory democracy. All the people are free to participate in the governing process, which is like pluralistic democracy. And thirdly, people are aware of what they are doing when they participate in the government process, so that their participation is a process of achieving self government, which is developmental democracy. Fourthly, the government is not a tyrannical and oppressive towards the people, which is called a protective democracy. Similarly, performance democracy, in which government outputs in the form of laws and policies, and these laws and policies are a reflection of self-governing people's desire for well-being. Okay, so let's discuss the components of democracy. Now, there are four components of democracy. For example, number one, pluralism. Number two, developmentalism. Number three, protection. And number four, performance. Okay, let's start with the component number one, that is pluralism. The term pluralism refers to the multiplicity, diversity, or plurality of opinions and groups free to express themselves within a political system. So pluralism relationship to democracy is crucial. Democracy requires that all of the people, with all their differing ideologies, opinions, values, and so forth, are free to connect to the government. Thirdly, ideally speaking, pluralism requires that no single group have a special claim to be heard before any others or to silence any others. Similarly, fourthly, in this sense, democracy affirms that all groups and opinions in a society must be free to compete for attention and for followers. Fifthly, if some opinions and groups are suppressed, which would be indicated by the lower levels of pluralism, then the level of democracy drops. Okay, number two component, developmentalism. Developmentalism is a subtle component of democracy, difficult to define and measure with precision, which means that the term refers to the extent to which the people develop their human potential sufficiently to possess an awareness of their actions as part of the democratic process, including an awareness of their civic actions such as voting. So from a developmental democracy perspective, we can ask, if people in the country, they vote in high numbers and have exposure to a wide range of groups and opinions, but act without awareness of what they are doing, so can we say that the democracy exists in a very meaningful way? Okay, so to be very blunt and to be very open, if self-awareness or consciousness of the need for self-government is absent, then how can self-governance, that is democracy, be possible? Similarly, does democracy not imply some level of developed intellectual self-awareness? And if not, then could we not say that interactive entities such as computers are capable of democracy? Okay, so would we not have to conclude that robots are capable of democracy? For example, if we are to disregard the developmental dimension of democracy, because after all robots could be programmed to carry out the function of voting, even they lacked awareness of what they had been programmed to do. So these are the kinds of questions raised when we begin thinking of what it means for a group of people to govern itself from a developmental democracy perspective. Third is protection, which is the protection component of democracy is a democracy's commitment to limiting the governmental power so that the governments do not become tyrannical. So for democracy to be authentic, the demos must be protected from excessive governmental regulation and control inconsistent with the democratic principle of self-government. So democracies have many options for limiting the governmental power. So the governmental power may be restrained through constitutional protections of freedom of speech, press association, and religion, through checks and balances that protect against the possibility of one branch of the government becoming all powerful, and through fixed terms of office for politicians, which protect against the rise of a governing elite who could proclaim themselves rulers for the rest of their life. So when comparing the governments from a vantage point of protection, the political scientists often evaluate the systems as highly moderately or minimally democratic, depending upon whether those systems have effective mechanisms such as constitutional bills of rights, fixed terms of office, or other provisions for protecting individual liberties. So the governments lacking well-defined safeguards against the expansion of governmental authority into the lives of the demos receive low ranking on the protective democracy. And now we come towards the performance. Democracy also includes a performance indicator. So if a government is democratic, if it is reflecting and serving the demos, then the demos should be living according to given resources available within the territory of the state. Demos means people.